Sierra Software Tutorials. Hotfox Era Plus User Interface. In this video we will present the Hotfox Era Plus user interface. When it starts, the software shows the file menu, which contains commands to manage our design files and to access the application settings box. The menu, on the left edge of the window, initially contains the Open and Options groups enabled. When a design is loaded, the Save, Information and Print groups will be enabled too. The Open group contains the subgroups New, Open and Import. The window also contains a list of recent documents to easily resume the work with our last designs. In the New subgroup we have commands for creating a new blank design and for creating a new design using a wizard. This wizard will guide us through the creation of a new, blank design by presetting some information, such as author data, classification, background color, reference image, beads palette, hoop, and more. We can also create a new design using a template. Templates store many of the settings we can define using the Start wizard, but are all predefined and ready to use to create a new design with a single click. There are some predefined templates and we can also create our own easily. In the Open subgroup we have the command to load existing designs, in native Hotfox Era format. In the Import subgroup we will find commands to start a new design with an artwork, raster or vector file, as a reference. There is also a command to open existing Bling machine files, usually called designs in machine format. Let's briefly interrupt the sequence we are following to see how the file menu looks when we have a design loaded. The Save group contains a subgroup with commands to save the design in native format, either with the same or another name. There is also a subgroup called Export where we find commands to save the images that our design may contain. We also have an important command to export the beads information in several formats, including those compatible with most automatic setting machines and stencils ready to cutters or other applications. Within the Information group we have commands to display technical information of the design and to share them through social networks or by email. If we have the optional pricing plugin, the Production Calculation subgroup will be enabled. Using these commands we will have access to the pricing tools. The Print group contains commands for printing the design in a couple of formats, one suitable for marketing presentations and other for production documentation. Finally, the Options group allows us to access the System Settings box, where we can adjust functional and visual options of the product. Also, we have access to the Customize Shortcuts box, where we can choose keys or combinations of keys to quickly access the most frequently used commands. Let's go back to the main sequence of our tutorial where we don't have any design loaded yet and load one of the sample designs included with the product to explore the user interface. We use the Open command. By default it shows the folder where the installer stored the sample designs. All commands related to the handling of our design files will remember, even between sessions, the last folder used, whether when opening, saving, or exporting. Let us select a design and press OK. The system will load the design and displays it in the work area. We will open a view called Object Manager using the tabs on the right edge, as this is a convenient and commonly used workspace layout. We will come back to this view in more detail in a few minutes. The main area of the screen is our workspace. All of our creation and editing work will be done here. There are some visual tools in the workspace, such as a ruler at the top and left edges. We can change the units of the ruler and calibrate it to exactly match our display. These controls are shown by clicking in the upper left corner. At the top of our screen we have the Tool tabs. Tool tabs are a huge set of tools organized on tabs. Some tool tabs are always visible and available, while other tool tabs are visible only if they may be required according to the activity on progress. Within the tool tabs, the tools are organized functionally in groups. Some commands are direct and others display a menu with more options. And certain controls in the tool tabs allow us to view and change the value of some parameters and properties. The Home Tool tab contains functions to start and open designs, general tools related to the design document, like undo, redo, clipboard control, hoop selection and import and export commands, among others. Inside the Artwork tool tab we have functions related to images, raster, and vector, including open and save. It also includes functions to insert new graphics objects into the design document. The Bling tool tab is the starting point to digitize Bling objects. It contains most of the functions we will use to create, edit, and finishing our designs. The View tool tab contains many functions related to the view options like zoom, simulation, grids, etc. Among other features, these functions controls how the design is displayed in the workspace. We also have functions that allow us to show and hide some elements of the workspace, such as the rulers, the scroll bars, and the auto scroll area. A thin gray area surrounding the workspace where if we click, it starts an automatic scrolling of the design. We also have the snap controls, which allow us to force the position of the mouse pointer to fixed points. Snaps are very useful when creating objects with precise geometries. The Synchronized Windows group allows us to open auxiliary graphical views of our design. The satellite view always shows the entire design and indicates with a rectangle the portion of the design that is visible in the workspace. For example, let's take the Zoom Window tool and define the area we want to see by clicking and dragging. In the workspace we now see the defined area, and the satellite view shows a small rectangle indicating the portion of the design we are viewing. We can move the rectangle in the satellite view by clicking inside it and dragging, and the workspace will update to show the new region. We can even define a new area from the satellite view by clicking outside the rectangle and dragging. This view is very useful to closely explore our design in the final stages of creation. The simulation view is a floating window that shows a realistic simulation of the design. Since the simulation window is separate from the workspace but synchronized with the active design, we can keep this window open while creating or editing the design in the workspace and see the changes reflected in this window immediately. Finally, inside the Help tool tab, we have functions related to the software license, the registered user, and links to learning resources and technical support. This small button on the right allows us to collapse the tool tabs. They will open when we click on the titles. By clicking on the pin, we can reset it so that it always remains visible. Below the tool tabs we have the main toolbar. It provides quick access to the most commonly used functions. Catalogs is a tool that allows us to insert in the current design, other designs stored on disk, images, motifs, etc. Create is a group that contains the tools we need to build our designs. The options available will depend on the product level and the optional plugins installed. Edit contains a set of tools to select objects from our design and then edit them. After the selection, we can edit the shape of the objects graphically in the workspace and their properties using the tool tabs or the object manager. Beads is a command that initiates the manual editing of stones, allowing us to move the piece, change it for another one, or delete it. These three buttons, Create, Edit, and Beads, define a working mode. That is, when we click on them, the system enters into Object Creation, Edition, or Beads Edition and remains in that mode until we click on a different one. The next group contains the main functions to manipulate our objects and blocks of objects. It starts with a set of controls that allow us to precisely adjust the position and size of our objects, either by using the small buttons or by clicking, typing a value and pressing enter. At the left, there is a subgroup of functions that will become active when we have an object, or several objects selected. They allow us to scale, rotate and mirror. Combine objects. Repeat objects. Create and manipulate groups. Align objects to the design or among them. Adjust the order. And convert our objects. The next group to the right contains the tools we will use to control the workspace view mode, simulation, simulation with auxiliary objects, such as reference images, and normal mode. We also have almost all the zoom options. However, if our mouse has a wheel, we have the zoom in and out tool always available. Simply place the pointer on any point of the design, and move the wheel. The view will zoom promptly. The pan function, to move the point of view of the design, is also available in the toolbar. However, again, if our mouse has a wheel with a button, we just need to press the wheel and drag to pan the design easily. An alternative way to pan is to place the mouse pointer over the rulers and drag. Some of the tools work as a mode, such as the pan tool. When activated, the system remains in pan mode until you press the escape key or open the context menu, with right-click, and select Cancel. The tools to activate the visual aids, such as the grid and reference lines, are also here. We can access the grid settings, select its appearance, color and size and then display it. Guidelines are reference elements that we can place and adjust at our convenience. We can activate guidelines, open the editor and add a line, selecting the style, color and position. We can also add and manipulate guidelines graphically. By placing the mouse over the ruler, holding down the Control key and dragging, we create a guideline. We can move it by dragging this symbol, and using the context menu, right-click, we can change the color and delete them. Within the show functions we find controls that allow us to show and hide certain elements of our objects. In complex designs, it is often useful to hide beads, object outlines, or other elements. Below the main toolbar we have the Documents tabs. Hotfox Era supports multiple documents, that is, we can work with multiple documents at the same time. Each document is in a separate space that we can activate through the Document tabs. The document that we see in the workspace is the active document, or active design. Let's load some designs to see how they work. We will use the Open command from the Home Tool tab. Click Open Design, select this design and click OK. We see that a new tab has appeared, with the design loaded. We just need to click on the tab to make the design active to work with it. We can change the tab's order by dragging them. And using the context menu we have commands to close the document, rename it, change the tab color, and more. We can also create a new, blank document, by clicking on this small white icon. Towards the end of the document tabs it is the Layers Visualization group. Hotfox Era is a multi-decoration software, and in the same design there can be bling objects, reference or print images and objects for cutting on vinyl or fabric. Each control handles the visibility of objects of a different type of decoration. Let's create a figure or vector object to see how the layers work. Select the Artwork tab, then Shapes and pick a simple shape like this. Click and drag to create the object. The figure is displayed and it is selected. If we click outside it, it is deselect and the bling objects are visible again. By default, the figures and images are considered as references, that is, auxiliary elements we use to create our objects. This type of reference images are always displayed behind the bling objects. Then, for example, if we hide the bling objects we will see just the figure, and if we hide the auxiliary objects, we will see only the bling objects. Usually the reference images are larger than the design we are creating, and when we click on them they are selected for editing. To avoid this, we can lock the layer where auxiliary objects are so they will remain visible but not selectable. On the left side of the window, we find the palettes and their associated commands. When we are working with vector artwork objects, the application displays the color palette, and when we are working with bling objects, it displays the bling palette. In the color palette for vector type objects, we find commands to edit the palette, load and save it to disk, among others. We also have controls that show us the current fill, border and workspace background colors. We can use these controls to adjust these colors also, just clicking on them. To select a new fill color, we just click on it, and to select a border color, right-click on it. If we have a vector object selected, the changes also affect it. The Bling Objects palette contains the beads that we can quickly select to create our designs. There are many predefined palettes, but the idea is that we can modify them or create our own, to include the type of beads we usually use to have them at hand quickly. Hotfox Era has a large catalog of different type of beads to choose from. By clicking on this button we have access to the palette editor where we can add, replace and delete beads. We can then save the new palette and even set them as the default one, so each time we create a new design that palette will be automatically loaded. Beads within the palette are numbered. The beads with the number with black background is the active bead, meaning that it will be used when we create a new object. Beads with the number with white background are beads currently in use. Clicking on any bead makes that bead the active one. Leaving the mouse pointer over a bead for a while displays more information about it, and right-clicking, open a context menu with options to replace that bead. Add new ones and delete unused beads from the palette. Finally, below the palette editor button, we have an icon to change the background color. Also, placing the mouse pointer over the background icon and moving the mouse wheel, we can quickly change the background color brightness. Let's note that the figures and bling icons at the top of the palette's area are synchronized with the tool tabs Bling and Artwork. On the right side of the window we find tabs that display important views and tools. We have opened one of them at the beginning of this tutorial, the Object Manager. The Object Manager contains two panels, the Document Map and the Object Inspector. The Document Map is a list of all objects, of all types, we have in our design. It is not just a static list, there are many actions available in this view, which is synchronized with the design. When we select an object in the document map, it is selected in the workspace and vice versa. Similarly, changes made in either view will be reflected in the other. We can filter the list by element type, auxiliary, bling, or show all types. The icons above each section operate in the same way as the layer display controls, allowing us to hide, show, lock and unlock objects of each type. The objects are listed in the order they were created, but we can modify this sequence, if necessary, by dragging the objects in the list. We need to say that, in most cases, the object sequence in Bling designs is not very important. Like in most Windows lists, clicking on an item and shift-clicking on other selects all the objects between them, and using Control-click, we can select non-adjacent objects. When several objects are selected, the context menu also contains commands to group the objects. Below the document map we have the Object Inspector. It lists all the properties of the selected object and it allows us to modify them, seeing the effect on the workspace immediately. For example, we select this object, its properties are listed in the Object Inspector. We modify the bead spacing and we see how the workspace is updated according to this change. The Object Inspector has two view modes, a detail mode and a list mode. By dragging it from the top bar, it can be set as a floating window, and using the button in the upper right corner, it docks back to the panel. Other important tool available at the right edge tabs is the Smart Design. Just a single click is enough to select an object type and fill style, speeding up the creation process, and, when editing objects, we just need a click to change the bead's fill style or to convert the object into a different object type. The Edge tabs also allow us to activate the Bling Object Sequence view. This view shows a graphical list of our objects and its beads. It is also synchronized. When we select an object in the sequence view, it is also selected in the workspace and in the document map, and when we select an object in any other view, the sequence view is updated. The same behavior applies to the beads list. Selecting a bead in the list makes the bead is selected in the workspace. At the bottom edge of the window is the status bar, with basic general design information, such as the bead count, dimensions, and pointer position. On the far right we also have a direct zoom control. In the online help, available from the Help Tool tab or by pressing F1 on the workspace, we will find more detailed information on each of the points we have seen in this tutorial on the user interface. Thank you for watching.